Hello and welcome to the Ciao Flower Shop mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. If you are just joining the tutorial series, don't forget to check out the links in the description box below where you will find the links for all of the papers and the other supplies that I am using from the Scrap and Create website to create this album. Let's get into the tutorial. Today we are going to be working on page 2. So the first part of the page, we are going to construct the base. So one piece is going to be 4 inches by 8 1/4 inches, and we don't need to score this piece. Then our second piece is going to be 4 inches by 9 1/4 inches. On the 9 1/4 inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch and 8 3/4 inch. Then we've got one piece that measures 4 5/8 by 5 7/8. On the 4 5/8 side, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch. Then we have a piece that measures 6 3/8 by 5 7/8. On the 6 3/8 inch side, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch. Then I'm going to score this at 4.5 inches. Next, I have two pieces that measure 3.5 by 5.5. On the 5.5 inch side, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch on the bottom piece of 1, and I'm going to score at 1/2 inch the top piece on the second piece. Now I'm going to take all of my pieces and I'm going to miter my corners, but I'm going to show you on this one because we have that 1/8 inch extra piece. We're going to go from the first score line, the 1/2 inch score line, and miter there, and we're going to leave that 1/8 inch piece alone. That's going to be an additional little gusset because I'm going to make some additional things underneath these pages that are going to be a little bit thicker once the paper gets on and if you add photos to your book. So we want those pages to lay flat. So I'm going to miter the rest of these, then I'm going to fold on all of my score lines, and then I'll come back and we'll assemble the page. Starting with the two first pieces that we cut and scored, I've got my long piece, the 4 by 9 1/4 inch piece, and I'm going to apply my adhesive to one of the tabs and then take the second piece and line the edge up at the top, and then I'm going to line up those sides and then burnish this down. Then I'll open this up, apply my adhesive to my second tab, and then close this to form the base for our pocket page. Now I have my centering ruler along the left edge to help me with lining up my next flap. I've got my 4 5/8 inch flap. The 1/8 inch extra gusset is here, so I flattened it so you only have that 1/2 inch tab section showing. That way I don't put adhesive on that 1/8 inch section accidentally. So once I have my adhesive here, I'm going to adhere this to the left side of my page in the center. And it is going to extend over on the right side of the page because that 1/2 or that 1/8 inch extra piece, remember, is flat right now, but it will not be hanging over once we're done. So go ahead and adhere your piece down to the left edge of your paper, or your page, I should say. And then once it's on, if you go ahead and get that 1/8 inch gusset to lift that page up. It should be right at the edge of your page. Now I'm going to move my ruler over here to this side, and I'm going to add the next flap. I've got, again, that 1/2 inch section. The 1/8 inch section is flattened out. So I'm going to apply my adhesive here to my 1/2 inch tab. And then I'm going to place my flap on the left edge. And then I'm going to close the opposite flap that I've already put on. And I'm going to move this if necessary, just so that everything is lined up straight. Then I'm going to adhere it down. And then with this one, when I bring that 1/8 inch piece up, what you're going to notice is there's a little bit more room here because I cut this piece slightly smaller so that I wouldn't have any problems with this closing completely on the page. Now I'm going to open these back up, and I'm going to take my 2 smaller flaps. So I've got the one with the tab at the top, and I'll apply my adhesive here. I'm going to take my ruler on this one, and I'm going to measure from it's 4 inches, so I'm going to measure not by the 1/8 inch, but from the first score line. And then I'm going to place my flap at the top in the center, making sure that that score line is lined up with the top edge, and then I'll burnish it down. Then I'll take my second flap that has the tab at the bottom and apply my adhesive to that tab section, and I'm going to place this one down here at the bottom, and I'm going to use the upper flap to make sure that I'm placing this so that these are lined up when they're closed. And then the score line is straight across the bottom edge of the page. Now the reason that I added this 1/8 inch extra piece is because once this is built up with my decorative papers and my photos, it will expand a little bit. So I want there to be room for it to sit and not have the page be gapped up. So that little extra gusset is really helpful. Now over here, I'm just going to leave this as a pocket. It's going to be a pocket once we have decorative papers on. We'll adhere that down, and then we'll put some photo mats or tags in there. So for now, this is the build for the front side on the page, and we're going to flip over and start building the back side. The first piece for the back side of the page is cut to 4 5/8 by 8 inches. On the 4 5/8 inch side, I'm going to score on the right hand side at 1/2 and then 5/8 of an inch. Then I have 2 pieces that measure 5 inches by 3 inches. On the 5 inch side of both pieces, I'm going to score at 1/2 and 4 1/2. Then I have a piece that measures 5 inches by 1 1/2 inches. It's just actually slightly smaller than 5 inches. I mean, we're talking just a tiny bit, so if you want to make your measurement the same, it'll help out later. So we're going to score this at 1/2 and 4 1/2. And then the final piece measures 7 1/2 by 6 1/4. On the 7 1/2 inch side, we're going to score this at 3 3/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to take these pieces that all have my tabs on them, and I'm going to cut those 1/2" tabs. I'm going to miter those ends, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to burnish all of my folds. I'm going to start with my 4 5/8" by 8" piece. Just like on the front side, I only have my 1/2" tab showing, so that extra 1/8" gusset that we have is folded flat. And I'm going to be adhering this piece to the right side of the page in the center. So there's going to be 1/8 inch on each side, top and bottom. I'm just going to eye this though. I'm not going to use a ruler and measure it. I'm going to adhere this down. Come in on the inside and burnish this first. And then I'm going to fold in that 1/8" gusset so that it will sit correctly on my page. Next, I'm going to take my 2 smaller pieces. These are going to end up being pockets. So I've got my first piece. I'm going to apply my adhesive to my 1/2" tabs, but I'm also going to apply adhesive to the bottom section, just a thin line. Then I'm going to flip this over and adhere this down to the front. I'm going to open this up so it's a little bit easier for me so it'll lay flat. And I'm lining up that right edge with the score line, and then the left edge will be right at the edge of the page, and then the bottom will be along the bottom edge. Now once I have that one on, the second one is going to tuck just slightly under. So we've got those mitered corners, so this will slide down under there. So it's going to become a double pocket. So I am going to apply my adhesive to these ones just like I did the first piece, and add my tiny little line of adhesive here. And then tuck just the ends slightly underneath, and lining up the right edge with the score line and the left edge with the left side of the page. And then don't forget to go along the bottom to adhere that pocket closed. Now, if you wanted to leave that pocket open, you could make it a belly band, so it would be a pocket type belly band, but something larger would slide under there. But I'm just going to have smaller tags or photo mats in there, so that size will be fine. So we've got those 2 pockets on the front, and then opening up, I'm going to take my small little band that I've created, my 1.5 by 5" band. I'm going to apply my adhesive to the tabs, and I'm going to create a belly band on the base of the page. So I'm just going to adhere this down to the center. And the reason that I cut this, like I said earlier, just slightly smaller than 5 inches was when I scored this, it'd be just slightly smaller than 4 inches, so it will not go into those score lines. It'll fold correctly when the page is closed. With the final piece, I just folded it into a booklet, and it's going to slide here underneath the belly band. So that's going to be it for the construction of the page. Next, we're going to go ahead and start in on the decorative papers, starting with the front side. I have this 12 by 12 paper. Now, we used all of these on the first page. We're going to use these back sides on the second page, but we're not going to use all of them. I'm going to cut out this one, and this one, and ink the edges of these 2. I'm going to come back and show you how to prepare this one on camera. Now for my green card, I'm actually going to be taking out this center section around here, but I'm going to be keeping it. So I'm going to use my craft knife to do this. If you don't have a craft knife, you can use your fussy cutting scissors. You just want to be really careful and cut a slit, a very small slit in here, and cut around it because we're going to be saving this piece. Now, if you can't save this piece, we can always cut another piece and slide it in there as a decoration, but I'm going to be placing this on the page and I'm going to leave the side open as a frame so the photo will slide behind it. But until the photo is in there, I want to be able to see this decorative paper. So I'm just going to come here very carefully and start cutting around this frame. If you don't feel like you have very good control using a craft knife, the scissors might be an easier option for you. Now I'm going to stop once I get there and I'm just going to continue here for now. I'll come back to that section in just a minute. Now I've got both sides. I'm going to go ahead and just carefully come through here. I may need to go over that a second time. I don't like going around curves. It's a little harder for me with my craft knife. So that's why I always leave it till the end. And then sometimes what I'll do is actually bring my fussy cutting scissors in here and cut around it. So I might actually just do that. Okay, so now I have my piece pulled apart. We're going to go ahead and start assembling the page. First thing I'm going to do is add some adhesive here to the edge on the right side and place a ribbon. I've cut 2 pieces of ribbon to about 10 inches in length. This is going to be my closure for my page. So the first one is here. Then I'm going to take this card and I'm going to adhere it right down to the front of my page. Next, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to place a second piece of ribbon here. So I'm going to mark it first in the center and apply more adhesive off of that right edge. And then I have another ribbon that is about 10 inches long that I'll place here. And then with this one, I'm going to take this card, and I'm going to adhere it to the front. Now I'm going to open up all of these flaps because I'm just going to place this one down now since I already have it cut. And I'm going to be placing this one here in the center of this flap. So I'm going to start with this piece and then I will come back and add the center in. But here's where you need to decide which side you are going to leave open to slide your photo in. Unless you're putting photos in as you go, put your photo in and then just place this down on the page. But if you're like me and you don't have any photos in your album yet, you want to pick a side, I'm going to leave this side here open. So I'm going to adhere the top, this left side, and this bottom section of my paper down. And so I'm going to just add a thin line of adhesive around these 3 sides. That way I can fit a photo all the way into there. So once I have my adhesive on, I'll go ahead and center this up on that page. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to actually adhere this whole entire thing down. So I'm going to first just go ahead and apply my adhesive, being very careful that I get all those little pieces and tips around those cutout areas in the centers. That way nothing is raised for the photo to catch on. Then I'm going to just first set this right down in here like this. Then I'm going to hold that piece down and use my bone folder to lift up the frame around it. So that it's now adhered down. And then one more time just to make sure that none of the glue got caught on the frame. So then I should be able to slide my photo under there whenever I have it. But until then, I still have the decoration. Now I have this 8x8 paper here that I'm going to be cutting from. So the first thing I did was cut one strip across the bottom that's 1 1/8 of an inch. Then I've cut this into two pieces that are 3 3/4 of an inch. One is going to go here and one is going to go here. Now I decided I'm going to add another one of those cards from the 12x12 paper here to the center. And if you want to add a photo over top of this later, you could, or you could just leave the decorative papers and you'll have your photos on the other pages. Now from this side, I've cut a piece that measures 2 inches by 5 3/4 of an inch. This piece I'm going to be placing here, and then I'm going to apply my adhesive to the top and bottom of this flap and close it to form a pocket. Then for the front, I have cut this bookmark from the 12x12 paper, and then I've trimmed the bottom portion. So this is 5 3/4, and I rounded my corners just so that it would match the top. And I'm going to be placing this here on the front of my pocket, and then I'll give a little journaling spot if you need journaling spots or if you like to journal in your albums. So I decided I will show you on camera how I make my pocket, because if you are new to making a mini album and this is your first tutorial, you might not really know some of those basic things. So I mentioned just putting a thin line of adhesive across the top and the bottom. So I use my liquid adhesive, so I want it to be thin so that I have more room to fit things into my pocket here. So if you put too much adhesive, you're going to limit the size of photo mat or tag that you can place into your pocket. And once you have your adhesive on, you just go ahead and use your bone folder to burnish this down and close. And you'll notice that I put my hands in the center and then I go from the center out. And that is to keep this from puckering up too much, because I want my pockets to be tight so that things don't fall out of them. And I found that that's the easiest way to do so. Next, I'm going to be working on my flaps. So from this A4 paper, I've cut these 2 cards, and then what I did was trim them down. So for this one, I cut a small piece off of this side, and then I cut this so that's 3 1/4 inches. And on this side, I think I cut from the flower side, so this is 3 1/4 inches. And then I just slightly trimmed a very little tiny sliver off, not even 1/8 of an inch, less than that, off of the bottom of this one and the top of this one, so that they fit on the flaps a little bit better. Now from this paper here, I cut a strip off of the top. I believe I might have had a 1-inch strip at the top, so I cut that, and then I cut 2 pieces to 3 1/8 or 3 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to take this one and place it here on the front of this flap, and I'm going to put one of these pieces on the top There's going to be a small white space between them, and then one of the pieces is going to go on the bottom. Then I took this paper and I cut here and here because I wanted to try to save as many of these as I could in case I decided to use them later. If you don't do that, it's okay. There are so many tags, you can replace it if I do use any of these. But I cut 2 more pieces, so they're 1 inch by 3 1/4 inches. So I cut one at the bottom and one at the top. And these, I'm going to open this up. And these are going to go here, same way, one at the top, the card in the middle, and one at the bottom with a small white space between all the pieces. From this 8 by 8 paper, I've cut 2 pieces to 3 1/4 by 4 3/4. Now I'm going to place one here on the inside of each of these flaps. Then I have taken from this A4 paper and cut from the top these 2 little pieces, and I'm going to place one of these on each of my papers. But what I'm going to do, so for the bottom flap, I'm going to place this at the bottom, and I'm only going to adhere the bottom portion down so that the photo can tuck behind it. Now, if you want the maximum photo space, you'll actually want to tuck this, adhere this down to the white cardstock so that then you have the entire place to tuck your photo. But I'm going to actually put mine here so then my photo would actually be a little bit smaller. And then the top, I'm going to do the same thing, except for I'm going to be placing my piece at the top and only adhering the top portion down so the photo will slide behind it. Once these flaps are done, I'm going to close those, and then I'm going to come over here and make some tags for my pocket. So I've cut this tag here from this paper and then one down here from this paper. These are the 2 tags. I've pierced holes in the top already, and I'm going to thread some charms from Scrap and Crate through the top of my tags. So for the first one with the plaid on the bottom, I'm going to place the watering can. Once I have my charm threaded onto my ribbon, I'm going to take those ribbon ends and feed them up through the back side first. Then I'll feed those ends through that loop, which will put my little charm right at the top. And then I'm going to tie this in a knot to secure this on the tag so that it will not come off. And I'm going to do the same thing with my little hat charm on the other tag. And then I'm going to place these here in my pocket, and I'm going to have them sticking out so that the charms aren't actually underneath the pocket, although they probably will fit. I'm going to just leave them like this, and I'll put the second charm or the second tag here. Once I have my tags in my pocket, I can go ahead and fold this over. And remember, because we have the 1/8 inch gusset, it is going to allow us to have a little bit more bulk in there, so everything will fit. Then I'm going to go ahead and tie my page closed because we are finished with the front side for now. I'm going to flip over and we're going to start on the back side. Now, if your bow does get in the way, you can always untie this like we did the first page, and I may end up untying it just so that I can lay this a little bit flatter, but for now I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to start with 2 pieces of that 8 by 8 pink and green plaid paper. So this first one is 3 3/4, and I believe this is 3 1/2. Nope, it's 3 1/4. It was just whatever was left over at the bottom. Now I'm going to be placing this here on this center of this pocket, and then this one is 3 3/4 by 2 1/4, and I'm going to tuck this one slightly down into that pocket here at the top. Then I've taken this card, and it's from this 12 by 12, and I'm going to place it here on the front of my lower pocket. From my A4 paper that has the butterflies on the back side, I have cut first this tag, and I just inked the edges. I'm going to leave it as is, so you can use this as a spot for a photo. Now, if you want to journal on this, you might want to back this on cardstock, but I'm going to put this down here in this front pocket. This one I am going to back on white cardstock though, because it is so tiny. I figured this would be a good spot for journaling, and then I can put photos on all of the rest of them. So I just have a scrap paper right now. I'm going to adhere this down. I'm going to leave a very small white border, and I'm going to cut around this. Then I'm going to go ahead and pierce my hole. I have my butterfly charm from Scrap and Create that I'm going to actually dangle with my ribbon through the end of this, just like we did on the tags on the front side. So I'll come back when this is complete and show it to you, and then we'll make the tags for the rest of the pockets. So here's my little tag with the charm on the top of it. I'll place this down here in this pocket as well. And then I have this tag from the A4 paper that's got like it's like a yellowish creamish color with some of the white floral pieces on it, and I'm going to place this in here. And then from the A4 paper that's got this like peachy colored paper on the back of it, I've cut these two cards, and I'm going to place this one here in the pocket. And then from the same paper, I have cut the butterfly. It's actually the same as this butterfly, it's just smaller. And I am going to actually adhere it to the top of this card. Since it's the same size as the butterfly on this one, I'm going to put it here. So just the center piece is going to be adhered down to give it some dimension. Now it will flatten down when it's in the album because the pages will kind of press it down, but it will still have that little bit of dimension. And then I'm going to place it here in this pocket. So I've got my two journaling cards there, or my two cards for photos, I would say, and then two more photos here, and then my little journaling card. So I'm just going to layer these up so that all those layers are visible. Then I'm going to open this up on the inside, and the first thing that I'm going to do is place my magnet here on my belly band. And I'm going to leave this in. The center of my magnet is about 3/4 of an inch in, because I'm also going to take a small piece of my ribbon here and make a loop out of it so that this will be a pull here so that you know to open that flap up. So I'm just going to apply my adhesive here to this, and this piece of ribbon is about 1 inch. And I'm going to place a little bit more adhesive on my ribbon itself so that all those layers have adhesive on them. Then I'm going to attach a second magnet. Peel that backing off and close my flap. Oh my goodness, I'm glad I did that. The ribbon is supposed to be over here on the end of this flap. Oh my goodness, it's been a day. So go ahead and take that ribbon off if you have already put yours on like I did, and reattach it over here to this side of the page. Next, we're going to work on the inside of the flap. So I have this 12 by 12 paper here that I've cut one piece from the bottom left corner to 3 3/4 by 8 inches. And this piece is going to go underneath the belly band here. Then I've cut a second piece of that paper to 3 3/4 by 8 inches. I trimmed 1/8 of an inch off the top and 1/8 of an inch off the bottom. Then I've cut it right here across where this kind of like shelf is on the paper. I want to be able to see the squirrel image. So I'm going to place this piece here, and then this piece I'm going to be flipping over and using on this side so that a photo will be placed here. Now I don't often do this because there is a magnet here, but I was also figuring maybe a smaller photo could go here and it doesn't have to be covered by the magnet. I don't like putting magnets underneath my photos because I think it messes up the photos. I had the piece of that 8x8 plaid paper left, so I did go ahead and cut this down to 1 1/4 inches by 3 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to be placing this here on the front of my belly band. And then I've cut this piece from this 12 by 12 paper here, and I inked my edges, and I'm going to back this first on some cardstock, and then I will cut around this, and then I'm going to place this right in the center of my belly band only, so that it's more of a decoration than for my little photo booklet will slide behind it. So this is what the inside looks like with all of the papers attached. I'm going to set it aside for now and work on the photo booklet. So for the outside front and back covers, I've taken this 12 by 12 paper. I've cut a strip off of this side. I'm going to be using the back side though. So these are 3 1/2 by 6 inches. Now I'm just going to place one here and one here on the back. Then from one of my 12 by 12 papers, it's this one here, I have cut this image. I'm going to back this on white cardstock and fussy cut around it. Then I'm going to place this in the center on the front of my booklet. Here is my booklet so far, and now I'm going to open up to the inside, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces from this 12 by 12 paper. Just like I did on the previous one, I'm cutting from the left side of the paper. I've cut 2 pieces to 3 1/2 by 6 inches, and I'm going to adhere these to the inside. And then I have these 2 pieces, which I believe, yep, they're from this 12 by 12. And I'm going to take one of them and adhere just the top portion up here so the photo will slide underneath. And then I'm going to take this one and I'll adhere just the bottom portion here so the photo will slide down under it. So this is the inside of my booklet, and I'm going to go ahead and place it here underneath the belly band. Then I'm going to go ahead and close this, double check and make sure that it still catches. I know unfortunately a little piece of my image here did catch on the magnet, just a little tiny piece of it. Luckily it wasn't a big piece of it, but I just want to make sure that it does fasten okay, and it does. So that is it for page 2 in the album, and that is the end of this tutorial. Now, if you are just joining the tutorial series, don't forget to check out the links in the description box below. They'll take you to all the Ciao flower shop papers that are on the Scrap and Create website, as well as the flowers and the magnets that I am using to build my album. I'll see you in the next tutorial.